The untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, wanted to put this video out about Claressa Shields because I didn't go live for the fight last night. I almost didn't even want to watch the card. I'll be honest with you guys. I wasn't the most gassed about the all-women's card. Hey, I'm not sexist, not misogynist. I'm just telling you the truth. I wasn't gassed about the all-women's card. I don't hate women's boxing. I'm not one of those guys. I actually have quite a soft spot for women's boxing. But listen, Claressa Shields, first, congratulations is in order. She does deserve a congratulations because with that win over Eve Marie Duclair, she is now two-time undisputed champion in 2A classes in less than like 15 fights. So she's doing a damn thing. You can't take away Claressa Shields' accomplishments. To come from where she's come from the mean streets of Flint, Michigan, all the way to being an Olympic gold medalist twice, then to becoming world champion, then becoming undisputed world champion, to now be undisputed two-time world champion. It's the kind of thing you write movies about, and I feel like, you know, with some in due time, as her career begins to develop, maybe they could make a Claressa Shields movie. But listen, I think what I'm here to do is to bring some much needed reality to the world of boxing and the world of particularly women's boxing, because like I said earlier, I don't hate women's boxing. You know, I have a soft spot for it. For any of you guys who know my background, when I first started training boxing, when I first started learning how to box many years ago, I was trained by Bonnie Canino, you know, at Canino's Boxing Gym in Dania Beach, Florida. You know, and she's one of the pioneers of the sport. So I've always had an appreciation for women's boxing and the history of it, and I know a little bit about the history of it. And with that being said, women's boxing, has it come a long way in the last couple of years since Claressa turned pro? It has come a long way. But the reality is this, man. I think there's something to be said when the quote-unquote biggest name and biggest star in women's boxing is fighting for her second undisputed championship. And she's fighting in a leisure center, in a financial center, in front of less than 500 people on a pay-per-view, which I can almost guarantee you did less than 50,000 views. 50,000 buys, I should say. You know? So that's the state of the game right now. And, you know, Claressa Shields, like, I've had the honor to meet her and interview her and have multiple conversations, more than 2 or 3 conversations with Claressa Shields over the years. I met Claressa before she was a pro. I've met her as she's been in the pros, and I met her. I mean, I just saw her recently about 2 weeks ago at a card in South Florida. You know, and we talked for like 5 minutes. She was very nice, and like, it's weird watching these quotes in the media sometimes, because like Claressa Shields, the one that I know, and the one that I see in the media are normally 2 different people. The Claressa Shields that I know, and I know this might be my experience, but all I can go off is my experience. The Claressa Shields I know is very down to earth, very approachable, loves to talk, has a great personality, you know, all that good stuff. Claressa Shields in the media, she just seems to say the most ridiculous things to get attention and shock value, and what winds up happening is, like, she turns off the majority of her audience, which, whether she likes it or not, is men. Most of her audience is men. So like, she became undisputed, and she came out and she said, I quote, "No matter what boxer comes along, nobody can get in front of Muhammad Ali. That's how I feel about myself. Muhammad Ali is first, Claressa Shields is second. I am the greatest woman of all time. 98% of the men in the world can't beat me." So like, look, I'm not gonna get bent out of shape about them comments about her 98% of men not being able to beat her. That's whatever. But Muhammad Ali, comparing yourself and putting yourself on the same tier of Muhammad Ali, I would let like this is just me and Claressa. I mean, I highly doubt she'll see this video. If she does, you know, hey, shout out to Claressa. Claressa, I don't think that's something you should be doing or saying, because it's gonna put people, it's gonna turn people off, and you're not gonna win them over by saying that kind of stuff. And she says these things all the time. She says things like 98% of the men in the world can't beat me. She says she can beat Keith Thurman and Sean Porter and sparring. She's not lacking confidence, but then, like, I don't know, man. Claressa Shields just has to... I'm not going to tell a woman not to be herself. If this is who she truly is, and the girl that I've met in person 4 times is a facade, then be who you got to be. But, like, be yourself, stay true to yourself, but, like, don't complain. When you make statements like this and you compare yourself to Muhammad Ali and all these things, don't get upset when people aren't exactly thrilled to watch you fight, or have a second thought about them supporting your career, because this is like when I hear Claressa Shields talk, right, in the ring, like in the ring as a fighter, I think Claressa Shields is a fantastic fighter. I think, there's not the most competition around the way, but she is a fantastic fighter. You can't take away her skills, you know. But outside the ring, she's really hurting herself. And like women's boxing, one of the problems with women's boxing is like it doesn't have any. There's not a lot of rivalries in women's boxing because there's not a lot of depth. You can go to most weight classes in women's boxing, and after the top 2, 3, or 4 fighters, the drop off is like huge. It's dramatic. You could fall off a damn cliff and into the bottommost part of an ocean. If we look at the depth of the talent in women's boxing, it's not like how it is in men's boxing. So with Claressa Shields, it's like it wasn't really a thing early in her career. Well, I remember Claressa early in her career coming out of the Olympics. I don't remember her being like sounding like entitled or sounding like anything like that. But as she's got more accomplishments and as she's progressed more in women's boxing, she's become like more entitled and she's become more arrogant, and that's just not a good look. Like I'll give you an example. Last night I watched a fight with a friend of mine, and he doesn't really watch women's boxing. He didn't even know much about Claressa Shields other than like that she won some gold medals. So he's watching her, and like because of how she acted in the post-fight interview and all this stuff, people get turned off by that. There's nothing wrong with a healthy dose of confidence. I'm not saying for her not to be confident. I'm not saying for her not to think the best of herself. But like when you say things like 98% of the men in the world can't beat me, and I'm just behind Muhammad Ali, that's like blasphemous. And even if those things do wind up becoming true in the future, don't say them yourself. Let the people decide that for themselves. If you're truly that great, you'll be put in that tier any damn way. But Claressa Shields, like her approach to boxing, and I'm not saying this as someone who doesn't like Claressa Shields, because I like Claressa Shields. I've met her. I want to preface everything I'm by saying I've met her. I like her as a person. She's been very gracious to me. She's a very nice person, and I think she does herself a disservice by how she acts in the media. But like I think sometimes with the way she approaches interviews and how she is, that a lot of times she reflects a lot of what's wrong with women's boxing. A big percentage of the women's fighters come off very entitled. They're entitled to the public's dollars, that they're entitled to the public support. And the reality is this: you got people like Roman Cholatito Gonzalez and Terrence Crawford and Demetrius Andrade, who are all great fighters, who are all struggling themselves in some way, shape, or form to sometimes get money or support or notoriety in some shape or fashion. So if those guys are struggling, what makes you think you're entitled to those things? Why? Because you won a couple of gold medals? Because you beat a girl who has no knockouts in 17 fights to win the Undisputed title? I mean, come on. Let's be real, Claressa. You being some good fighters. I'm not gonna sit here and shit on your whole resume, because that would be disingenuous. You have beaten Franchon Cruz, who is an excellent fighter in her own right. You have beaten Hannah Gabriels, who gave you a good fight. You have some good wins in your resume. You are a good fighter. You are someone that is helping push the sport of boxing forward. But you're doing yourself and women's boxing a huge disservice by saying things like this. And nobody in your circle, I'm like 99% sure nobody in your circle or none of your friends will tell you this, because people are just gonna gas you up right now because you're on top of the world. But like, I'm being honest, Claressa. As someone who's a fan of yours and someone who has had the opportunity to cover you from afar and just cover and meet you a couple of times, I think you're doing yourself a big disservice. And it was a good performance last night against Duclair. You're making history. You're not the first. Clarification for the idiot YouTube channels out there that say that Claressa Shields is the first ever undisputed champion in 2A classes. That's not true. I mean, Evander Holyfield has done that. It is correct that she is the first in the 4-belt era. But as far as overall, she is not. And there are a lot of channels and Twitter accounts saying that she was the first ever, period. And that's just not true. But yeah, again, all praise to the Claressa Shields. All credit goes to her for coming from where she came from in life to get to where she got to now. Hopefully she can get the Savannah Marshall fight, because that looks like it could be a good rivalry. Savannah Marshall is a very talented fighter, and Savannah Marshall beat her in the amateurs. So that's the fight I would look at next if I was Claressa, because I feel like there's a lot of storylines. There's a lot of good things going on to that fight. And they're both talented. And if Claressa Shields is as good as she says she is, a fighter like Savannah Marshall will bring out the best in Claressa Shields. She will bring out every last ounce of the skill she does possess. So that's what I'm at, man. Like, a lot of people are saying that women's boxing is taking over and all this stuff. And I was seeing a lot of delusional comments on Instagram and social media platforms last night. And I'm rooting for the success of women's boxing, but I'm not going to sit here and fool myself. Women's boxing has a lot of work to do. And that's not just talking about in terms of talent, but that's also talking about in terms of the girls' attitudes. A lot of these girls in women's boxing, they have entitled attitudes. And what they fail to understand is that boxing is a business. It is a business first. It is a sport second. It's not a reality that I like to accept a lot of the times, but it is the reality, and we must accept it. So you get paid based on what you can command as far as attention and eyeballs and viewership. You know, it's simple. It's simple supply and demand. If there's a demand, if you supply, you know, yourself, the product, the fighter, and there's a big demand for watching you fight, for paying for your tickets, for, you know, whatever, t-shirts, memorabilia, whatever, then you will be compensated accordingly to the supply and demand principle. And that's what I feel like Claressa Shields and a lot of the women's boxers fail to understand about women's boxing in general. And they come out very entitled, and women's boxing almost seems kind of like a feminist movement at sometimes. That's why, like, in my humble opinion, I don't think Claressa Shields. I think she has a chance to really continue to, you know, separate herself as the best fighter in women's boxing. She might be the best fighter in women's boxing. You know, she's definitely the most accomplished right now. But I don't think she'll ever be the biggest star because of her attitude. And you can mark what I'm saying down right now to take it to the bank. I don't think Claressa Shields will ever be the biggest star in women's boxing. Not because she's not a good fighter, and it's not because she's not marketable. I'm not hating. It's because of her attitude and the way she's consistently acted over the years. Now, like, take someone, for example, like I'll say a Seniesa Estrada. You know, I'm a big fan of hers. You know, Seniesa Estrada is a talented fighter in her own right. She's fighting for the world title on the Verge Ortiz, Maurice Hooker undercard. I'll be at the fight. It's gonna be a momentous occasion. But Seniesa Estrada, I remember her career in the early stages when she was a girl who was fighting at 108, 112 pounds, and she would fight these girls that walk around at like 125, you know, or 115 pounders that walk around 125. She was fighting these girls, and this is before she was signed with Golden Boy. She was fighting these girls most of the time in empty arenas on the early stages of undercards. And maybe she did complain, but I've watched a lot of her interviews over the years, and I've never, ever heard Seniesa Estrada complain or moan about equal rights, equal TV time, equal pay, any of that stuff. Not to say that she doesn't think those things. I'm sure she does in private, but all I've ever seen Seniesa Estrada do is put her head down, position herself the best she can, and you know, try to make her career as best as she can. And because of that, and because of the fact that she's a fantastic fighter and she's knocking out Miranda Atkins in 7 seconds and setting records and going viral, and, you know, she's a total pack. I believe she's a total package, and I think if she keeps winning, that Seniesa Estrada has a chance to become the biggest star in women's boxing. I've thought that for a long, long time, and I'll continue to think that for a long, long time. Claressa Shields, great fighter. She will go down in the history books, whether she has a good attitude or bad attitude, but she can't get mad at people who don't want to pay to watch her fight if she's making statements that consistently turn people off. I'm not saying for her to change. I'm not saying for her to not be who she is, because at the end of the day, she has to like who she sees in the mirror, and she has to be a person of value to herself before she can be a person of value to anybody else. So, yeah, Claressa Shields, like, just if you watch this video, take the time to think about what I said and continue to be great. You know, I'm rooting for you. I'm still gonna cover your career, and hopefully you do well. And I'm in Texas right now, but when I get back to South Florida, I'll come see you. You know, but until then, you know, everybody, you guys take care. Let me know what you think about Claressa Shields and just like how she's acting. Like, she was also saying Pacquiao who, Canelo who, all these fighters, and she's just excited. But I think there is a massive amount of delusion, not only just with Claressa Shields, but women's boxing in general. And I can't say it's got to change because I don't think they're in an environment that will allow it to change. But every woman's fighter that has no knockouts in 17 fights, and every woman's fighter that doesn't market themselves that well, or any woman's fighter that has a bad attitude or somehow attacks men and blames sexism, you know, you guys are the problem with why women's boxing is not where it should be. Not the men, not the networks. It's only you guys. So I'm gonna leave it at that. You guys can you know, say what you want to say. I don't care. You know, if a women's fighter comes across this video and they have a problem with what I say, you can comment in the comment box. You can hit me up on Instagram at Just a Kid from Dania. I'm not hard. I'm never hard to find. I'm very easy to reach. So yeah, with that being said, you guys leave your comments down below. Take the time to subscribe. Like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm Just a Kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys.